An anonymous executive not only was pretty harsh on the pick at 5 by the Detroit Pistons of Ron Holland, but they were also quite harsh on the overall state of the Detroit Pistons. Is it really that bad? We'll talk about that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. We're on our way to 10,000 subscribers. So again, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs have winded down. The sports have stopped sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all of our customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today, you'll hear more about FanDuel a little bit later. Just want to give you guys a reminder. Moving forward, we are going to be doing more of a themed episode each week, have more of a schedule. Not starting this week because we keep having some more stuff that comes out with the Pistons, like the article that we're going to talk about in the first segment. But probably starting next week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday is going to be more themed episodes. If there's any kind of themed episode that you guys want to hear, a what if, a mailbag, whatever, any suggestions that you guys want to hear during this part of the offseason, let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. Later on, we'll talk about whether the Pistons are going to be more of an offensive or defensive team. We'll also talk about should the Pistons or will the Pistons, either or, make another move. But I want to start off with another ESPN article. Just last episode, we talked about an ESPN article where they gathered a bunch of executives, scouts, etc., to talk about random questions, to answer questions and answer like a poll, to have a voting poll. And there was I don't know if this is like an updated version of that one or just a completely different section of people asked compared to the last one. But this one had an anonymous executive say something pretty harsh about the Detroit Pistons. And a lot of it sounded like more so pointed towards the Pistons selection of Ron Holland at 5. But it also was pretty harsh overall on the state of the Detroit Pistons. So the question was most surprising pick of the NFL, or not just surprising, the biggest reach in the NBA draft. And the person who received the most votes was Ron Holland for the Detroit Pistons. And this is what the blurb says. The reasoning for it underneath. The Pistons made the first surprise selection of the draft with Holland at the number 5 pick, a pick that raised some eyebrows around the league because of his questionable roster fit, my goodness, as a below-average shooter on a team that sorely need perimeter shooting. Detroit's selection, the first under new general manager Trajan Langdon, was a swing on talent above all, which led rival execs to wonder if a larger-scale changes to the Pistons' young roster are coming. I feel bad for Cade Cunningham, one voter explained. They've been rebuilding for years, even though they've never planned on it. And this pick signals they might need to blow up their roster and start over again. I just don't see how Holland plays with Asar Thompson, Jane Ivey, and all of their other young guys. That situation is a mess. Even when Holland was scoring in Vegas, it was so ugly to watch. End quote. So, there's multiple places we can start here. I'll talk about Ron Holland last, but I just want to talk about the Pistons situation. I want to just provide an example for people to really understand why I can't be mad about any person saying the Pistons situation is this bad. I'm gonna let you guys in on something. So a few days ago, I'm having an argument. Me and my friends were all in an Xbox party, all right? And we're having an argument. And basically the argument is, could you drop prime LeBron James on any NBA team and them be an instant contender? That was the argument we were having. And I was more so on the side of, prime LeBron probably could make just about any team at least a contender. And one of my friends said something back to me. And while I covered the Pistons this entire past season, I watched every single game. I recorded every single day of their past season. But one of my friends repeated back to me. He said, "Koo, the Pistons lost 68 games. You think he could make the Pistons a contender?" And when I tell you guys, I'm not joking even a little bit. When I tell you guys, I had low-key forgotten that the Pistons legit lost 68 games. You know how many games 68 games is to lose? 68 of 82 games. Like, even when he said it, and again, this is coming from someone who covered the team all year, recorded after every game, watched every game, was credentialed at multiple games. Like, I know everything about this past season. Everything. I covered it all. But still, 68 losses is hard to even comprehend. When he said it, I was like, man, I'm not going to lie to you. I knew the Pistons season was horrible, but my God, I low-key forgot 68. Like, you say it out loud, it's like, my God. I say that to say this. I can't be mad at any person that says the Pistons situation is a mess. We talked about in the last podcast about how the offseason wasn't as bad as some people believe it is. But the offseason wasn't some home run either. It wasn't like they made some drastic changes. They kept all the young guys. No one left. They literally kept all of the young guys. They added some pieces, but a lot of the rotation from last year is still returning. Now, a lot of people believe that the additions to the team will help the young guys grow, but there's a lot of similarities still. And again, this team just lost 68 games. Unless they made some big move to really try to change the scene here, I don't blame anyone for saying, look, until they show us that there's any different, this team is a mess. This team is an absolute mess. I can't blame it at all. Can't blame it. I know I do sometimes. I think all fans do as well. Kind of forget just how bad this past season really was. Like, historically bad. So, I don't really blame them for saying this. Until the Pistons can prove that they are not an absolute mess, any team should call, or any executive, scout, anonymous, whatever, should call them a mess. It's been one of the worst 4-year stretches in like basketball history. Like, it's been horrible. It's been straight up terrible. Absolutely terrible. And I'm going to take you back to last offseason. Pistons fans were very, very optimistic about the upcoming season. They thought it was going to be 35-plus wins. I saw people saying that they were going to push for the play-in. Like, it was very optimistic. And then this past season, it happened. I say that to say this. No matter how optimistic you are this season, I think you have to kind of reflect on past mistakes and understand, unless some crazy internal development happens, expecting this team to make a 20-win jump is just not realistic. Teams don't just jump 20-plus wins in an offseason. It doesn't happen. So, look, I like the moves the Pistons made. I like the spacing they acquired. We'll talk about that in the second segment. We've talked about that all. But nothing they did it's not like they went out and acquired an all-star. It's not like they went out and completely shook up the young core. No, they brought back the young core. And they've added some okay veterans to try and make it easier. Until they prove that they're not a mess, that these young guys are actually good players, which they haven't, they're going to be considered a mess by everyone. No one's going to take them seriously. And I know for a fact, I'm telling you guys this right now, there are players that do not, I think this should be, self-explanatory, but I know for a fact that there's players across the league that have looked at the Pistons and said, nah, that's a joke. Like, I'm not coming to that organization. I'm telling you guys that happened this past offseason. Whereas I don't want to go there. I'm sorry. Like, it's just, that situation's a mess. So they have to change not just that image with the executives and with fans, but with the players too across the league, potential players they want to acquire. Like, I don't think people truly understand how long of a road the Pistons have to restore not just the on-court product, but their image and the respectability amongst the league. So I'm not mad at all about anyone calling the Pistons an absolute mess. They are. As far as Ron Holland, I said this after the draft. Just about anyone the Pistons were going to draft probably were going to have questions about their shooting, about their outside shot in this draft, in this specific draft, where the Pistons ended up falling to. The prospects at that position, you probably were going to be dealing with somebody that you have questions about with their shot. So I feel like the Pistons were kind of in a lose-lose situation publicly with that in the media, unless they traded back, which they didn't like the trade back offers, whatever. So they end up going with Ron Holland, which, yes, is the upswing. They're swinging for the fences with him. again, I can't blame someone for questioning whether Ron Holland, Asar Thompson, Jaden Ivey, and Jalen Duren could ever share the floor together. Because I question it. We'll see. We'll get to see it play out. Obviously, everyone hopes for the best in the community. But to sit here and act like there's no reason to be like, for this person to say, I don't see how they can play together, like that, I don't think that's a hot take at all. Like, I completely understand that as well. I think the way they said it was pretty harsh. Like, this was very harsh criticism. But when you lose 68 games and don't make any like big changes outside, like obviously the front office and coaching stuff, but with the roster, any big changes, like this is what's going to be said about you. And when the pick you make, you can be high on Ron Holland. I don't blame anyone for being high. If you believe that eventually they can fit together, I don't blame you at all either. But the questions are there. So I don't think anything this executive said was off. And also, I mean, I kind of said on the podcast too, like, I don't think he was really wrong either about, like, even when Ron Holland was scoring, it wasn't very, like, pretty to watch either. A lot of forced jump shot, or a lot of forced layups, a lot of tough shot attempts, very poor efficiency. Like, I'm not saying that should matter long term. I'm not saying that means he's going to be a bust at all. That's not what I'm saying. I don't think anything this executive said, this anonymous executive said, was really false. I think he just told the truth. Whoever this is, I think they just told the truth. I don't think people in the community want to say the truth as much. Like, they don't want to just be as bluntly as this. But when you, like, what can I really say that, like, what can I argue against this? I don't really see why I can argue against this that's, like, wrong. Like, I think one of the only things people may push back against is feeling bad for Cade because he's on the roster. He can contribute to wins, which is fair, but also, like we've talked about on the podcast a lot, not the greatest situation, put around a number one pick. I don't know if anyone else has ever had such a terrible, like, situation around them. But either way, like, yeah, I just don't think this executive was wrong. And I think this speaks to, like I said earlier, with the players that I've heard, like, say those things. This is what the Pistons are looked at as by executives. I'm telling you guys, by agents, by players, by coaches. Like, this is how the Pistons are looked at as. So until they change the on-court product and change their image as an organization, you're going to continue to get this stuff, and they deserve it at this point. So that's where I stand on what the anonymous executive had to say. Let me know what you guys think. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at @KukaHill. Coming up, offense or defensive team this upcoming season, I think is pretty clear, and I don't think they really have a choice which way they have to choose. I love sports. I've loved them my whole life. I've played them my whole life. I'm not planning on ever stopping playing sports for real. I love them a lot. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs have winded down, we've obviously gotten fewer games. And the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. I've told you guys this many a times. A few years ago when betting became legal in Michigan, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to try. I tried out FanDuel, and I have not turned back since. Super easy to use, super self-explanatory, and the most important part, extremely fun to use. So again, head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. That's what FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So I'm going to let you guys in on what inspired this segment, because I always like to give credit when I can. I feel really bad. There's times where on the podcast when I shout out a tweet, someone tweeted at me, and I forget who it was, and then I can't find it. I can't give, accurate shout outs. But obviously this is someone who we've shouted out on the podcast a ton, and we're going to continue to do it because obviously he covers the team. I read James Edwards III recent article for The Athletic about the Pistons. And he was talking about, in the article, he was referencing about why the Pistons need to improve on defense. And if the Pistons are going to become better, they need to get better on defense. And that's where it's, where it's going to happen. So that inspired this topic for me. I thought about talking about, are the Pistons going to be, or I guess it's two questions. Are the Pistons going to be more offensive or defensive? And which one should they lean into more, offensive or defensive? Because like you saw last year, and you may be wondering what's the difference. At the beginning of last year, they leaned defense. they went with that starting lineup of Cade, Killian Hayes, Asar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, and Jalen Duren. That was clearly leaning in more defensively. But as the season went on, it became more clear that their roster more so suited an offensive. I mean, I don't even feel right saying that because their roster didn't really suit anything. But like you could get the most juice, I would say, out of their offensive end. The juice that you were getting out may have not been much at all, but the juice you had was on the offensive end. If you see what I'm saying. So I think the answer to this is the same side of the court for both answers. It's the offensive end of the floor. And look, I know that Trajan had a quote, and I know there's people that have the belief that defense is just about effort. And it's just, if you want to play defense, you'll play good defense. I'm here to tell you guys this right now. I think anyone who's played basketball their whole life, heck, as long as anyone who played varsity basketball in high school, at least, like legit, as long as you've played any competitive basketball at any point in your life, you should know that's not true. Like, it's just not true. Effort, yes, you have to give effort defensively. If you're not giving effort defensively, you're not going to be good defensively. That's true. But you can say the same thing offensively. If you're not giving effort offensively, like, how are you going to do anything? So, yes, obviously you have to give effort. But defense is a skill. Defense is an ability you have to have. The ability to shuffle your feet. Your intellect, to know where to be at, to process things like that. Like, we talk about processing on this podcast a ton because I love high-level processors. The same stuff we talk about offensively when they can read where defense is going and make the next play and read. Like, that's the same type of processing you have to have on the defensive end of the floor. Like, you have to have skill. I say all that because Trajan has said before in a press conference that, defense is about effort. It's about effort. No, I don't. That's not the case. And I don't care how much effort certain Pistons make. If you're not technically sound, if you don't have the skill to do so, if you're not a high-level processor on that end of the floor, if you don't have the body type to make it work on that end, like if you don't actually have defensive body, length, etc., like it doesn't matter. And that's why I'm saying I believe the Pistons are going to be offensive this year. Their roster suits more offensively, and they should lean more into their offensive side of the basketball. I get that everyone constantly wants them to lean into their history, the bad boys, the going to work team, and just lean into defense. That's what the city loves. This is what the Pistons are always about. Defense, hard-nosed, tough, physical basketball. I get it. But you have to have a roster that suits that. You actually have to have players that can do those things. You can't just force that onto a roster that can't do those things, that just don't suit that style. And the fact of the matter is this. These are the players that are going to be getting large amount of minutes for the Detroit Pistons. Jaden Ivey, he's not a good defender. Jalen Duren has been a poor defender. Tobias Harris, he's not a good defender. THJ, he's not a good defender. Malik Beasley, he's not a good defender. Simone Fontecchio, probably like an average. He's one of those guys that gives effort, so he can at least get to like passable, but he's not making plays defensively. Cade, he's been on and off. I believe in his defensive ability from what we saw his rookie season. Fell off this past year because of his load offensively. We'll see if he can tap back into that. But last we saw, it wasn't that great defensively. The only defenders they have in this roster are Asar Thompson and Isaiah Stewart. That's literally all the defenders they have. Marcus Sasser, who could potentially be getting minutes, is just undersized. We've talked about that before. No matter how technical he can be defensively, guys are just going to shoot over him. We talked about this a few podcasts ago. You can play the most perfect defense. It doesn't matter if a 6'7" guy can just raise up over you and not get contested. Like, it is what it is. So the Pistons don't have a roster that can play defense. And JB Bickerstaff, defensive-minded coach, I think the best you can hope with, or I didn't mention Ron Holland, but Ron Holland, a rookie, 18-year-old rookie. So just throw that out there. You don't expect 18-year-olds to be good on defense ever. So you hire JB Bickerstaff, who's a defensive-minded coach, so he can maybe take a team that would be naturally like the 29th, 28th defense, and maybe he can get them to being by a system and getting them to all buy in to maybe get them to around like 23rd defensively. Like, that would be the hope. But no matter how much defensive system you have and how much emphasis you put on it, if you don't have the players that can, actually make it work, you're not going to be much of anything. So, like, I think maybe Bickerstaff can get them to, like I said, around 23rd, maybe 24th, 20, like around there defensively, but they just don't have the roster to do so. What they do have the roster to do so is to score baskets, to put the ball in the hoop. Cade Cunningham can score the basketball. Tobias Harris can score the basketball. Malik Beasley can can shoot the basketball, which obviously score the basketball. THJ can score the basketball. Marcus Sasser can shoot the basketball. Bobby Clipman can shoot the basketball. Jane Ivey. Everyone loves Jane Ivey. What is he? A scoring 2 guard. Jalen Duren, what is he? An offensive center who can score around the basket and create somewhat for himself on the offensive end from the high post, get to the basket, score, draw fouls, do all that kind of stuff, run DHO stuff. Like, all of their players are suited to be offensive players besides Isaiah Stewart and Asar Thompson. So instead of trying to move away from that, if you want to be a defensive identity team, go acquire defensive type players if that's what you want to do. But they've done nothing but acquire offensive spacers. So don't acquire offensive spacers and then try to be defensive team. No, your roster is screaming to everyone who looks at the roster, who has watched any of these players over the last few years. Your roster is screaming to everyone, we are going to play with pace and space. That's what we're going to do. We're going to play with pace and space. We're going to get a lot more threes up than we did last year. We were like 28th, 29th in the league in 3-point attempts. We're probably going to be more towards the middle of the pack. We're going to get a lot more threes up. We're going to hit more threes. We're going to play more spaced out for Cade, for Jane Ivey. Like, that's what this roster is screaming to you. And we're going to put a lot of emphasis on getting buckets up. That's what we're going to do. We're going to try to limit turnovers. We're going to try to put the ball in the basket, and hopefully that can help our defense, because now teams are going against a half-court set defense and a ready-made defense. Like, that is what this roster is screaming. And when I say we, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about from the Pistons' perspective. We are going to be an offensive team. We have offensive talent. We need to maximize the offensive talent. If they felt like this team had defensive potential, they would have went out and acquired veterans that would have helped them unlock that defensive potential. They didn't do that. They went out and acquired a bunch of veterans that can literally only shoot. Like, if we want to just keep it a beam, if we just want to keep it 100. THJ, are you expecting him to do anything out there except shoot the basketball and space the floor? No. Like, Malik Beasley. I think a lot of people know how bad he was defensively with Milwaukee. Are you expecting him to do anything here besides shoot the basketball and do some fun dances every time he hits a three, that little shimmy? No. Like, that's what you're expecting from him. Like, Tobias. Are you expecting anything else from Tobias, really, than to be a leader in the locker room, shoot threes, and score the basketball? No. Like, those are the guys that you brought in, which is fine. Which I'm not, like, saying it was bad or good. But that's clearly what you are telling everyone, this is what we're going to be this year. So I get that fans and a lot of older fans I know want to see this defensive identity, this going to work team, this bad boy stuff. I get it. But before you can do that, you actually need to go acquire the players to do so. Like, you don't have a Ben Wallace. You don't have a Rasheed Wallace. You don't have a Tayshaun. I mean, maybe you have a Tayshaun SR, but you get what I'm saying. Like, you don't have a Chauncey. You don't, like, Chauncey was an all-defensive guard. Like, you don't have those type of defenders on your team anywhere, really. So unless Jane Ivey all of a sudden becomes this all-world guard, or if Jalen Duren takes this massive leap defensively in one offseason, like, unless that kind of stuff happens, and even with that, like, the only one that really could make a massive change across the board is if Jalen Duren became like a massively improved defender, and all of a sudden was an elite big man defender. Now that would warp the entire defense. But let's operate in the realm of reality here. I don't think anyone really thinks that's going to happen. So I just think that, yeah, like, you need to see them improve defensively. Yes. You need to see them get better defensively. Yes. JB Bickerstaff is a defensive coach. Yes. It doesn't matter if your personnel isn't defensive, and their personnel is the farthest thing from a defensive team. So I think they're going to lean offensive. They're going to try to be a top 10-ish offense. They're going to try to play with space. They're going to try to give Cade and Ivey space and hope that they can really drive and kick and score the basketball. I think that's what the main influence of this team is going to be, what they're going to be doing. So, and if they can do that, if they can be that good offensively, I do think it will wipe away the defensive concerns, and they can be a much better team. But that's only if they lean into that. They have to understand what their personnel is and lean into it. So that's my opinion on that. Let me know what you guys think. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. Will or should the Detroit Pistons make another move before the start of the season? So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So I'm recording this on July 31st. Honestly, I feel like the summer's kind of flying by. But whatever. The Pistons have went quiet for quite a while. We haven't seen them do much in a few weeks. We did get the official, front office team. I don't think, many people care much about no one's really going to know the names of those players, or not players, those executives, everyone in different positions, unless they're a well-known name like Fred Vinson, for example. But outside of that, they haven't really done much. They've, gotten a coaching staff. We've talked about that. But outside of that, they haven't made any roster moves in the last few weeks, despite still having a little bit of flexibility with their cap space. So should they just walk into the season with this being their main roster, or should there be another move on the horizon? Well, I'm going to maintain in the same stance I was at earlier in the offseason. I'm not moving off of it. Yes, I think the Pistons need to be making another move. Like, if this season they want to make another jump, or not, let me not say another jump. They didn't make a jump last year. If they'd like to make a jump, I don't know if this roster is doing that. Now, I think they can be better. Like, I think they will be better. And why I was just on the last episode saying that someone saying this offseason was horrible is crazy. I think horrible would be insane. But to act like this was like a fantastic offseason, like I don't know if you can call it that either. It was like, okay, all right, like, okay, whatever. Like that kind of offseason. That's why I view it as. So I don't expect them to make some big jump this next season. And maybe that's not their goal. Heck, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Look, what that anonymous executive said about the Pistons potentially like gearing themselves up for another rebuild next year or so, like maybe a year and a half from now or something. Look, I don't think that's completely out of the realm of possibility. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Like I know that sounds absolutely terrible to hear, and like it's definitely like doom and gloom. Like it's. I don't think anyone wants that. But look, you guys can ask anyone that I talk with, any of my friends in the Pistons community. Like, you can ask any of them. I've low-key had those conversations behind the scenes, like, the last few weeks. Like, I don't know if it's, like, completely out of the realm of possibility that Trajan is just like, you know what, we're probably going to have to rebuild this thing again. So we're just like, I'm not ruling that completely out of the cards. Like, I could see that happening potentially. I don't think it's the likely scenario. But, like, that's the situation the Pistons are in. Like, I don't think that executive was too crazy to reference that. I think that is on the board. Maybe it's not high on the board, but it's definitely somewhere on the board as a possibility. I bring that up to say, if you don't want that to be the case, if you actually want to make a jump this year, like, you need to make a trade. You need to, like, add another guy, especially if you want to be better defensively. Like, you need to add some defensive talent on this team. Especially at the center position. I still don't think, I know they brought in Paul Reed, but I don't think he's going to play. Like, actually someone who's going to play at the backup point guard spot. Like, I really would like to see a defensive minded guard there. Like, I think that would really help them too. I think they still need pieces added to this team. I think the boat has sailed on them potentially going after like a high level starter. I don't think they're going to do that. Even the goal of we're going to acquire future assets this offseason with our cap space. Did they really even do that? Like, I know they got THJ for 2 seconds, but like, is that really anything? Like, I don't think they really even did that either. Like, they didn't acquire future assets for real. So, like, I don't know. I know I just got done, like I said last episode, saying this offseason wasn't terrible, but it wasn't like it was fantastic either. It wasn't like a great offseason. It was just like a meh offseason. So if you want to like make this season like a legit good one, I guess, go out and acquire some players that could actually help you win even more games this upcoming year, or actually go acquire these future assets that you want to acquire. I know that requires another team to tango. I get that. You need to have 2 teams to tango to do that. Maybe even 3 teams if you want to be a third team in it. I get it. But like, as of right now, yeah, I'd like to see the Pistons make another move, because right now I don't think this offseason was awful, but I'm sitting right now at July 31st saying, like, okay, is that it? That's fine. That's okay. Like, okay, that's decent. It was a decent offseason. Now, if the young guys all make big jumps, then it doesn't matter, like, the additions you make, because they'll make up for it. But, like, this was the exact reasoning for last offseason's quiet moves, and people didn't, we saw how that played out. Now, I'm not comparing last offseason and this offseason, because they did make, like, multiple different moves this offseason. So, like, they actually went out and acquired veterans that can play. And I do expect them to be a little better. I just don't know how much better you can actually expect them to be with these additions being the additions you made. So even if you don't want to go the route of, hey, we're not even really trying to be that great this upcoming year, we're trying to, take it slow. I would have liked to see, like, some future assets actually acquired then, if that's possible. If you can do that before the start of the season, that would be cool. But that's where I stand with that. Let me know what you guys think. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Till next time, peace out.